A little over a year and a half ago, God led my family and I to Life Center Church, and it has been an incredible year and a half for us, and we've seen God do some incredible things. We've seen lives change, we've seen people baptized, we've seen our giving increase. There's been a lot that has gone on, but you know what? It didn't start with me. It started way before I got here. Life Center's story started almost 9 years ago.
That's perfect. Let's do it.
Do it, yeah.
See you, bro. Big dark blob. My name is Scott Cooper, and I'm the multi-area director for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. That's what I do, but I'm also the founding pastor here at Life Center. It started, and you know me, I'm passionate, so I get a little choked up when I think about these things. But I was a youth pastor here in White House in this part of Sumner, Robertson County. But while I was youth pastor, I'm older now, I'm 50 now. And so a lot of my students became adults. And when they got into a young adulthood, I found myself coming back here and actually performing funerals. I would get a call and say, hey, will you come speak at my daughter's funeral or my son's funeral? And that's where I got tired of coming back and talking about death. I wanted to come back and breathe life into a city that I desperately loved, and that's why we named it Life Center. So, anytime you follow the Lord, there's always an unknown. He's a popcorn trail of faith God. He is a God that says, go to a land that I will show you. But we knew that we wanted to come breathe life into a community. We knew that we wanted to plant a church that really reached young couples, but not just reach them on the surface, but could really reach their heart, penetrate their heart with the gospel, and then want them to grow in their relationship with Jesus Christ. In your journey with the Lord, there will always be a group of people. It always starts with relationships. Wherever you go, it starts with relationships. And there was a group of people, and they may not be here long term. I mean, sometimes God sends people for just a moment in time, and God sent a powerful group of people. We met in a living room. I'm still thankful for those people that met in that living room. We outgrew a living room pretty fast, obviously, and then we moved to upstairs of a garage at Rika Hatfield's house, is what her name was at the time, and we had about, I think it was like 47 people in this room above a garage, and I knew we were breaking some kind of fire code. And I thought, let's go to the Civic Center. And so we call the Civic Center, and I don't know if you guys have been in the Civic Center. The Civic Center's a little rough, and so we call and we ask if we can use White House Civic Center, and they say yes. And then I guess word got out, and we began to grow at the White House Civic Center. And that Easter, the first year, we decided to do something totally different that a lot of people in the city probably still remember. We decided to have Easter service at White House High School in the gym, and 1,000 people showed up for that service. Of course, we're celebrating. You're celebrating the fruit of the Lord and what He's and the effort of your hands. I mean, we were really partying. And I looked at him. I told him, I said, "That's not reality. That's a picture of what God wants to do. There's no way that we can serve that many people right now, but one day we will."
It was truly life-changing to look back, because initially, we didn't know how long we'd be at Civic Center, and we were just doing ministry week in, week out with those services, multiple services, and our children's ministry and multiple services, and then we get this invitation from a place that we weren't even looking for, and it's almost as if God said, the plan that I have for you, I'm gonna bring it to fruition. You don't know the steps that I have in front of you, but I have planned the steps in front of you. And so there was that excitement of it, going from a place that was borrowed by us to a place that was given to us as ours. And while we did not own it, and we weren't just simply at that point renting it, it was ours, and still in the backdrop of our mind, it wasn't so much place as it was people.
The cliche of home is where the heart is. I mean, a church home is where Christ is. It's where God is. It's where a body of believers is gathered in His name to worship Him and to minister to the community. And God's provided that. We have, Life Center's always had a church home.
I enjoy so much being here Sunday mornings and shaking hands and high-fiving the little kids as they come in. This COVID thing's been killing me because you can't touch people. It's weird in that respect, but just being, look at what God did for us. If we can just give Him a little dab of something, of our time, talent, or, gifts. I mean, I think it brings joy.
For me, what made this a church is the people that are there, and everybody all being unified and having the same mission and having the same drive, and just being a part of something that is blessed and favored by God.
I tell a lot of people jokingly that ask me now, they're like, hey, tell us about you being a pastor. I said, well, I was kind of planning a church, by accident. It started off as a Bible study and you had 1,000 people at Easter. I mean, that doesn't just happen tomorrow. And the more I think about it, the more I think I was really an interim for the city. And I never felt like I was really a pastor. I never felt like I was really a shepherd. And so I prayed for that. And man, you guys, like you have a shepherd in Spencer Bernard, a true shepherd that is going to tend to his sheep, that's going to go after the lost sheep. He is going to do all the things that a shepherd should do. And you think that God really moved when I was here. You haven't seen anything yet.
I'm confident that many of us have experienced some moments of deep spiritual significance here at Life Center, which has led us to have a deep love for our church. We all have a story to tell, every single one of us, about what God has done. A lot has happened in the last year and a half, from hiring new staff to rebranding an entire church, from moving locations twice to figuring out how to do church online during a pandemic. I mean, it has been a very busy 17 months, to say the least. But, in the midst of all that, the primary thing that God has done is He's given us this renewed sense of mission for seeing His kingdom advance through our church. And that mission, in words, is this. It's leading all people to experience a growing relationship with the one true God. One of the things that we know is that growing things change. During our Farm Facts series, we talked about, when you're growing something, you got to prepare the soil. But in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 10, Paul explains to us that God's going to supply the seed to the sower, but He's not going to do all the work for us. A seed is really anything that God has placed in our hands that you would consider of value. It's 3 resources that all of us have been given to be used for growth. Anything that you have can fit nicely in these 3 categories: your time, your talent, and your treasure. And so these are seeds that God provides for us to grow His vision. Paul goes on to say, now He who supplies the seed to the sower and bread for food He's also going to supply and increase your store of seed, and He's going to enlarge the harvest of your righteousness. What Paul is saying to us is that as we continue to be faithful with the seed that He's provided, He's going to continue to enlarge the harvest of righteousness. And the promise of an enlarged harvest in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, it speaks to us on many different levels, but it especially speaks to us as a church family. It's a future where we have a place to call home, a place where our children and our grandchildren, they grow in their faith. It's a place where families are restored. It's a place where God enlarges our influence and He enlarges our impact. It's a place where everyone belongs. It's a place where everybody has a role to play in the mission that God has called us to. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 11, Paul goes on to say this. He says, you're going to be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion. And through us, your generosity will result in the thanksgiving of God. So while we pursue this vision and we cultivate the soil, God's not only going to grow our church family, He's going to grow us personally in our love and our affection for Him. Guys, we're at a really unique moment in our church's history. You know, we can continue to kind of just stay where we are as a church, or we can trust God for so much more. You know, time and time again, you'd see God push His people out of their comfort zone so that they could experience more. There was never a moment this side of heaven when God said, you've arrived, right? Take off your shoes, get comfortable. He was always moving them. He was always growing them. He was always challenging them to reach for more, to do more for His kingdom. So as we look to the future, guys, we want to continue to rely on God's provision. We want to rely on His power, but we also want to do our part in advancing the kingdom. So as we cultivate the soil, we plant the seed God provides, His promise is this: it is to enlarge the harvest. Now, guys, I don't know about you, but I want to experience more. I want more of God. I want more of His promises, more of His blessing, more of His favor, more of life change, more of His plan for our church, which is why I'm asking you to prayerfully consider what God is calling us to do together. That He wants us to be more than just a church that's surviving. He wants us to be a church that is thriving.